Right, let's do this. Now, unfortunately, I've lost the old phone which I used for doing the camera work, so I'm having to hold this one lengthways. Whereas with the Motorola, I could just hold it like that, and it will be wonderful. It was wonderful. But anyway, this one is crap and doesn't do a good job of. It does not do a good job of rendering the colours, as we'll see when I get the fire going. But numerous people did ask, Hobbit, when are you doing a fire video? And I said, when I get a decent camera phone. So forgive me, but with the RAM apocalypse, a decent camera phone is not in the foreseeable future, so we'll just have to make do with this. Now, I did have a fire going last night, and it was crap. The fire was far too choked up with ash and clinker, so I've had a good clear out. I've cleared a fair bit of the ash, and there was plenty of half-burned anthracite. If you can hear that, I have a filter going in the background because I was concerned about breathing in ash and other noxious substances. So I thought, why not get a filter? They're not that expensive. So anyway, the half-burnt anthracite, I've sifted and I separated the ash and the clinker and bits of nails from pallets, and I've put it in the main boiler where it'll burn much better than this little fire. Yeah. Do you know, this fire I've got, it's a little bit smaller than the fire my dad has, which is a wood burning stove. And he keeps it ever so clean. And I say, oh, what do you use for cleaning the windows? He says, well, I don't. He says, all I do is I open the vents up and then it cleans itself. Any soot deposits on it get burnt. I was like, well, my stove's supposed to do that in theory, but it doesn't. But then again, I tend to burn things which you ought not to burn in the fire, because for me the fire is my incinerator. It burns my rubbish, and that's the sort of stuff which can't easily be cleaned from a window. And likewise, come the end of every year, some of the bloody fire rope starts to disintegrate and come to pieces. So yeah. Well, speaking of disintegration, I let my uncle borrow my coal scuttle for a bit, and I've just got it back today. So here's my coal scuttle. It's brass, and the reason you'd have a vessel for holding coal made out of a non-ferrous material is coal's corrosive. It's got sulfur and other corrosive compounds in it, which will eat away at steel or iron. So if you have something made out of copper or brass, it will what? It will not corrode as rapidly. It will still corrode, as my uncle found out, because his scuttle, which is made out of copper, or maybe it's bronze, but it looks like copper to me, the main body and the base has got a crack all the way around. So I bought some copper putty, the sort plumbers use for fixing leaking pipes, which is rated up to 150 degrees. And it's like, well, look, that really doesn't matter for a coal scuttle. I mean, the hottest it will get will be about 30 degrees because it's right next to the fire, like my one. And he said, oh, because I cleaned up the scuttle so we could have a proper look at the crack. Because I said to him, oh look, your floor's absolutely covered in coal ash. Did you have a spill? And he says, oh no, it just comes out the scuttle. And it's like, well, then you've got a crack in it. So I cleaned it up and it's like, yeah, you've got a big crack in it. He says, oh, well, I bought it at a car boot sale and I could understand why someone was chucking it away. And I was like, yeah. And he says, oh, we'll just chuck it. And I said, no, we bloody won't, because I've bought the copper putty for him. And I said, well, I'm going to have a go at fixing it, because I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but I quite enjoy putties and clay. And yes, look, it's very rough, isn't it? I'm not a master craftsman, but I can do seals. So I will have a crack at it, and it will probably break, because I mean it's just a putty, but maybe it will last for a while. I don't know. And if not, have a look for another non-ferrous coal scuttle, because you can buy them on eBay and Amazon for about £17, but they're made out of really flimsy steel, and yeah, they'll work for a season, and then after 6 months you'll get a hole in them, and then after that they'll be completely rusted through. I mean, I remember with the coal scuttle I got, and it had a brass handle on it, but it was steel, and I said to my mate, oh, you're a welder, could you weld a new plate of mild steel on it? He says, no, I'm not going to. I said, why is that? He said, well, for a start, the steel's too thin to weld onto. It'll just, if I use my stick welder, it'll just burn through. And secondly, it's corroded. You don't want to use steel for holding coal because it's corrosive. You want bronze or brass or copper. What about aluminium? So yeah, well, yeah, aluminium works if you can find an aluminium scuttle. It's like, what about titanium? He says, yeah, well, titanium is a brilliant material, but you'll be paying about £50,000 for it. I said, as much as that? He says, yeah. And I said, well, look, I've got these titanium chopsticks. They cost me 15 quid. And it's like, yes, and if you were to buy enough of those titanium chopsticks to make a coal skull, you're probably looking about £8,000 in material, but then you're looking at the forge time, because forging titanium is not easy. But I mean, if you could have a coal scuttle made out of titanium, that would be superb. So anyway, look, fire is going, and then once it's established, I'm going to put some coal on it. But I mean, I would say this is pretty much done. I got myself a little thermometer there, and as you can see, it's oh, here we go. It's the other way round. So, do you know what I said about this being a crap phone? It won't focus, will it? Anyway, if I put you there we go. Now originally that was red, but I don't know what it is with these thermometer people, but they put a paint on it, and the paint, as soon as you expose it to the heat which you'd expect from a flue, just vanishes, goes. It's rubbish. It's almost as if people design things and they don't understand what the usage is. Like, people make a coal skull and go, yeah, we could just make that of 0.3mm mild steel with no treating for corrosion. That'll work fine. Or people, they design stuff for cars like Tesla, and they go, oh, we don't want buttons. Buttons are ugly. They take away from the sleek design of our dashboards. Like, yeah, that's all well and good, your very nice sleek dashboard, but it's cold in the car and I want to turn the heating on. How do I know? I've never been inside a Tesla, but my dad has. And I said, yeah, but you're a passenger who's being chauffeured to this do in London. And I said, well, then what did you do for heating? He says, well, yeah, you got to go into a touchscreen. It's like, so if you were driving that thing, oh, I'd never drive one. It's like, yeah, but if you were driving one and you were keeping your eyes on the road, how would you go in the touchscreen and tap? I mean, there's nothing to feel. You can't feel it. So you wouldn't be able to you wouldn't be able to have muscle memory. You see, in my old car, you've got this thing called a knob, and if you want to turn the heating on, you twist the knob clockwise, and if you want it colder, you twist anti-clockwise. And likewise, if you want it to go to the air vents to the window, you twist it all the way to 12 o'clock. And if you want the air vents to go to your feet, you twist it to 6 o'clock. If you want half and half, you do it half and half. And oh look, it's not doing too well, is it? I think I was a bit too optimistic in putting that there, because look, we still got a firelighter, but I've choked it out. I've not been paying much attention to this. Oh, I swear I'm actually getting worse at making fires. Not better, I'm getting worse. I mean, I was looking at it. No, I wasn't looking. I was just talking about how things are badly designed. I mean, here's an example of badly designed. You know, I'm making a fire and I've snuffed it. So, I mean, fortunately the firelight is still there. So if I just bring that little twig in there, like so, that one there, like so. Have I got any other twigs I could put in there? No, not really. See, that's the thing. Like, you can see where the firelighter is. And by the way, I assure you that flame is yellow because it looks grey on this. And I've used this thin log here so it's not in touch with the bare metal. Oh, I've got it. Here's my surface thermometer. Let me show you some temperatures. Well, I can liberate the damn thing. Right, so temperatures. Let's show you. So the floor, 13 degrees. The wall, 10. And the steel of the grate is 13 degrees. And that log is 32. Oh, okay. Over there it's 12. Over there it's 12. It was outdoors. I think it's about 7 or 8 degrees out there. Strange how it's warmer than that. Yeah, look, that log there, which is just there on the floor, that's 9 degrees. And you know what? It really is. It's struggling, isn't it? Yeah, that firelighter's had it. All right, time to put another one. I've got these hippie firelighters that Greta Thunberg likes. They're wax and saw paper. They're wood shavings and wax. That's what they are. Yeah, Greta Thunberg really likes them. She says, "I like them because you cannot start a fire with them, and that makes you CO2 neutral." Because that's how she talks. She does. We're in regular correspondence, you know. She looks at my fire videos and goes, "Orbit, I do not like how you use my name as a butt of your jokes and you treat me as a straw man woman." She's not French, she's Swedish. Yes, and the Swedish accent very similar to French. It's why many people get us confused. But I am from Malmö, not from Marseille. Yeah, so as I was saying, Greta Thunberg and I regular correspondence, and she recommended these carbon neutral firelighters to me. She's very good like that, you see. You can write to her, greta@un.org, and she'll respond eventually. But honestly, I think I'll go back to the paraffin firelighters after this, or even better, Amazon cardboard boxes, because they are the best firelighter. In fact, I've got a cardboard box over in the dining room, but I've yet to break it down because I thought to myself, no, I don't like the ash you get from cardboard. Why don't I use a firelighter? Why don't I try and be proper about these things? So some people, they're very fastidious about the fire. They'll be like, oh no, I only use smokeless fuels, and I use a pre-approved firelighters as approved by the Forestry Alliance, and I only use kiln dried hardwood logs, and I only have the finest anthracite from Abergawenny in Wales. Actually, I don't know where the anthracite in Wales comes from, but I like the name Abergawenny. So it's a very Welsh name, like Axel Rudiger Banner. That's is as Welsh as you and I. And we do like the Wales. They're very good singers, and there's not many big singers in the Welsh choir, but you've got plenty of top tenors, and I think it's a wonderful sound. Really, really good. Obviously, people will be listening to this and going like, Terry Wogan's not Welsh. Look, I'm not good with accents, all right. I try. I pick up a few things here and there, but I'm not that good at them. I do try, and if I'm doing an accent, it's because I have a fondness for that place. Because if I don't have a fondness for them, I'm not familiar enough with them. No, I do like Wales, and I like the Welsh people. I think there's a lot to be said for Welsh culture. They've done a far better job of holding on to their folk history than the English have, and I think it's sad really, because there's good English folk history and it's not appreciated. I mean, it is, but it's not. There's no state endorsement of British culture. Well, there you go. That's the problem. I said British. There's no state endorsement of English culture in English folk history. So it's kind of relegated really to just folk like you and I who are interested in its history and its culture. I mean, one thing I can say, if you're interested in English history, and it's absolutely wonderful if you listen to it being spoken, it's Middle English. I mean, there's the Canterbury Tales. That's a famous example of it. There's also it's not the Wycliffe Bible. There was an unauthorized Bible. It might be the Wycliffe Bible. I might be thinking of another one. And that's in Middle English, and it's beautiful, and it's translated from the French Vulgate Latin Bible, and I find it very interesting because I was reading the book of Luke, and it was talking about these regions, and one of them that was talking about was Achay, and I was like, what is Achay? I've never heard of this region before. It's a part of southern Greece, maybe where Sparta is. I can't remember exactly, but it's an old French term for that region of Greece. So of course in the French Vulgate Latin they would use the French place names for these Greek places. So I don't actually even know what that area of Greece is called. I mean, I'd say it's Sparta, but the region of Sparta has another name. Sparta it's like saying, what you've got this region of England, which is it's got Birmingham in it, but it's not Birminghamshire. It's is it Warwickshire? Maybe it's Worcestershire. I don't know. I don't know what county Birmingham's in. I think it might be Warwickshire. But likewise with this region, and again I'm sort of getting lost in the details here. But Middle English is a wonderful language, and there's various philologists who practice these old languages, and it's wonderful to hear it. And they even like one I saw recently. Was his name Simon something or other? And he's a Northern Englishman, so his accents are all coloured by his Northern inflections, which is absolutely fine. And I was listening to him, and he was reading a sort of passage about farmsteading, and he was doing it from Old English, circa 800 AD, up to 19th century American English. And I got to say, from 1300 onwards, it becomes understandable. And I would say 16th century English and onwards is what I would describe as modern English. I mean, people, the way they pronounce things and certain words we don't use today, but it is, like I'd say, 90% of the way there of being what the English that we have is now. And it's amazing to think that English from 500 years ago, very easy to understand, and English from 800 years ago, still understandable if you put a bit of effort into it. But Old English, my God, that is a different language altogether. I have no idea what they're on about. I mean, if you read something like Beowulf, it's, you know, the Dutch and the Germans have a better luck with reading Beowulf, and the Frisians certainly, because for some reason Frisian has not had the same mutations that English has had. How very interesting. Well, I think so. I think language is one of the most important and complex and interesting parts of any folk study, because the way people speak, the words they choose to use, and the order in which they put those words, it tells you a lot about how those people think. I have a chum in France, and I said to him, because I was talking to him about slurs, which I shan't repeat here because these are words which are not allowed to be said. And then I said to him, what about phrases like, in English, if something's incomprehensible, we say, oh, that's Greek to me. Or, I mean, a phrase which I don't hear people say so much these days is, that's double Dutch. And he said, well, yeah, the double Dutch I can understand, but we would say, no, in French, c'est du chinois, which means to say, that is of Chinese. I said, okay, that's interesting. So you'd say that is of, and then the language, in their case Chinese. So if we were to translate, it's all Greek to me. Well, the literal translation, it's all. C'est tout Greek, grec, to me, pour moi, de moi. De moi or pour moi? It's all Greek to me. C'est tout grec pour moi. C'est tout grec pour moi. That's how it would be translated literally, but if I was to use the French version, I would say, how did he say it? C'est du chinois. C'est du grec. C'est is, it is. C'est du, it is of Greek. It is of Chinese. And again, it's you know, we have these phrases can be translated, but at the same time, both he and I were sort of humming and hawing about the word do, because he says, and I said, well, will I say, so I said to him, look, I'm trying to think how I translate do, and I say, what if I said a baguette du fromage? And he says, no, you'd say, oh, hang on, let me just have a look what he said exactly, because he said, well, the example he gave me, he says, a loaf of bread's le pain. And he said, but if you've got the bread, you say, j'ai du pain. I do have bread. I do have the bread. It's weird. It's like the grammar doesn't translate exactly. Now, let me. You'll have to excuse me. I'm turning my head. I'm trying to have a look at this. All right. So when you say I have bread, you say j'ai du pain. And then I said, what about the other thing, like baguette de fromage? Well, then you say a baguette of cheese. Did I say that right? Right, baguette du fromage would translate to baguette of the cheese. So do I mean is a belonging word. And look, I'm not the world's best translator, and um, I'm not that fluent in French, unfortunately. Uh, but the point I'm trying to allude to here is I find it very interesting in how you will find not 100% exact translations from one language to another, and it's good to see how they think, because you see that is a product of the culture, it is a product of the folk history. Like, for whatever reason, we divulged from these other languages, and the way we say things is quite different to how the Europeans say things, even though we're quite similar people. But then again, we're in an island unto ourselves, with our Welsh and Scottish neighbours, and also the Irish and the Manx to a lesser degree, but they're their own islands. And because of that, our culture, and therefore our language, and I would argue the way we think, is different to the continentals. And by the way, I get very pedantic about translations, and I really wish, because people do it occasionally, they say, oh, what if you were to literally translate German into English? And it's supposed to be funny, like, oh, see how awkward it is, and how we would never speak that way, and this is why translating the grammar and not just the verbiage is important. It's like, well, no, I think people should translate things exactly how it's said in that language. And yes, you'd listen to it and go, well, that's odd, that's an alternate phrase, we wouldn't say it that way. But I think it'd be really good, because especially if you're trying to learn that language, if you hear the grammar structure in your own tongue, so you can familiarise yourself with it, when you eventually start to learn the words, you start off with nouns because they're easy. You know, I learnt Italian quite quickly when I was over there, just by studying nouns. Oh, and another thing. The other thing which really helps with learning languages, I find, is adverts. Now, adverts, the language they use in them, it's not going to be the most technical. It's quite simple. It's often repeated. They list salient points of the thing. And one advert I remember in Italy was Dolicholax, which was a laxative, and they were talking about its various properties, like not causing cramping and being soft and gentle action, and other sort of things which you would want in a laxative. And I just sort of found it funny. I thought to myself, my God, I've learnt more from this laxative advert than I have any phrase book, certainly Duolingo. My God, right, here's the thing. If you want to unlearn a language or not learn a language, use Duolingo. I've used Duolingo, and it's just quite funny. I thought to myself, I'll set up Duolingo in French, and I'll use it to learn English, a language I'm passably familiar in. And my God, I was reading, I was just like, I would never learn English if I had to do it this way. And I tried it again with French, and I just thought, oh yeah, let's try learning French with it. And yeah, you get like sentences, and put the words in the right order to make this sentence. And it's just, how are you going to do that unless you've actually listened to the language, read the language, and looked at pictures and figured it out? I tell you what, It's much better to listen to people speak, especially when they're trying to inform you about stuff, and adverts are one of the best ways to do that. And I've got children's books are another good one as well. So, funny enough, I was talking to my uncle about that because I drove him to his car today as the battery in it died and got it started, and I was saying to him, talking to him about Latin, because he's saying stuff to me in Latin. I said, I wish I studied Latin in school, but wasn't even an option. I said, oh, did you do Latin? He says, no, he read stuff in the libraries and things. I said, oh, well, my aunt, she studied, now, I think she did study Latin, but she was not interested in it, but she did study Greek, and then she went on to get a degree in both ancient and modern Greek. And she got an interest in that because the convent school she went to, the nuns spoke Greek, or they had knowledge of ecclesiastical Greek. Well, you know, the clergy, they're educated in Greek and Latin, so that's why she learnt Greek. And people of my generation, we were denied such an education, and the idiots that said, oh, this would be good, you know, it would teach them contemporary languages. No, it's not good. I think it would be much better if you taught people Latin and Greek, which is the foundation of all European history and culture. Yes, I know people say, oh, but what about Spain and Germany and other niche edge cases? Like, yeah, well, look, you know, it's like saying, but what about the cherry on top of the cake? It's like the majority of the cake, the bit which people go, that's a cake, it's not the cherry, is it? The actual cake of English, yes, I suppose of English history and culture, and certainly European history, culture, and language is Latin. To a lesser extent, Greek, but certainly Latin. Without that Latin, without the understanding of it, you have a hard time understanding other languages. So tell you what, if you know Latin, then Italian, French, Spanish, Romanian, Maltese to a lesser extent, although that's Arabic grammar, you can all understand them from that basis. And one of the best ways to learn Latin, and I wish I could remember what it's called, other Latin people will know that it's called La Familia or something like that, and it's a picture book, and it's very simple. It's like Spot the Dog. You know, you got La Patris, the father, La Patricia, no, Domina, or is it Domus and Domina? Well, anyway, the mother and the father, and then you got Fili. I can't remember what sister is. The house is a domus. So what's? But anyway, it's got all these things. You know, it's got a drawing of where they live, and the father in the house, the mother in the house, the sister in the house, and it repeats these bits of language, and then it modifies them to say the mother in the house. And I don't know how to modify Latin words to say the house belonging to, the slave belonging to, the child belonging to the stylus and the wax tablet, and all those other things. But it's a very simple picture book, and it's good. Anyway, look, I've had 3 hours of sleep, my coffee's wearing off, this rambling's going nowhere. I like English history and culture, and it's something which can be better appreciated by studying other histories to see how it compares and how it integrates into our own. There we go. Right. I think, you know what? Just in that corner there, I'm going to put some coal, and then we'll call it a video. We'll call it an end. I was going into a bit of a ramble then. I just realised that I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, actually, I do. What I'm talking about is how I'm lamenting that I was never taught Latin as a kid, and it's harder to learn things as an adult. So I tell you what, I don't have the same appetite for learning that I once did. I mean, for technical stuff, yeah. Yeah, I'm you know, if it's something which happens to be a field of expertise like computers, I'm still interested in that. But when it comes to languages, oh boy. You know, I think I've probably spoken this before about my Belgian ancestry. It always sort of, well, mind you, she never spoke Flemish to my mother or aunts and uncles, but my grandmother knew Flemish, she spoke Flemish, but she never spoke Flemish with me. And it was one of those things of like, well, I know it, but you don't want to speak Flemish, you want to speak French. It's like, well, French, Flemish, German, these are all the official languages of Belgium. I wouldn't mind knowing all of them. And I learnt German with my German cousins and friends. Well, I say I learned German. Ich spreche keine Deutsch. Hilfe, sprechen Sie English, bitte? No. The extent of my German is I can get out of an airport, go into a bar, and say, "Kann ich haben," while pointing to it, "eine halb Liter oder Budweiser, bitte." I say Budweiser. Das ist die Pilsner auf Tschechoslowakei. Noch die Budweiser Farbe auf Americana. So let's say that in English, because I'm sure I'm making a lot of Germans cringe by saying that. When I'm referring to Budweiser, I mean the Pilsner that is brewed in Czechoslovakia, or Czech Republic, not the Budweiser that is fabricated in America. Und kann ich haben eine Brezel mit meiner Bier, bitte? And then the cashier says, that'll be whatever the price is, and then I go, oh yeah, you Germans, you have a way of saying numbers that make no sense to me whatsoever. Because let's say, oh, it's an airport, so it's 14 euros and 30 cents. All right, 14 and 30. And the Germans, the way they say, like, team numbers and 10 numbers, I do not understand it. I don't. You Germans are very strange with your numbering system. It makes no sense to me, but that is the extent of my German. Yeah, it's enough. I can point to an object, I can say its name, and then I can say a quantity of. And then I say to the cashier, can ich... Fuck, I don't even know how to say C. I don't even know how to say right. Like, can ich... no. I think it's literally a case of pointing to the cash register and saying, can I look? And then they turn it around and they go, oh, 14.30, right, okay. Here, 15? 50? What's 15? Is it 50 or 15? See, I don't know. I know one's 15 and the other's 15. Well, let's think about that. Zane is 10. So I would assume that 50 is 15. So 15 must be 50. So if I was going to say in German 14.30, 14 euros 30 cents, that would be das ist 40 und 13 Euro. Am I right? I don't know. Are any of my audience members German? I doubt it. Anyway, look. It's a fire. Toodaloo.